Terry Nolan, Finance and Property Committee Chair. All members are present, but we will go around the room and call a meeting to order at 5 p.m. March 29th, Tuesday. This is a special meeting. We will also, so I don't forget, we will also be having a Finance and Property meeting, the regular one, next Wednesday, the 6th at 5 p.m. So we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves.
Greg Hepp, District 6 Alderperson.
Todd Furpey, City Alderman.
Tom Riom, Alderman, District 4.
Jonathan Anderson, Daily Tribune.
Brent Salshiner with the Y. Tim DeSourcy. Joe Terry, Director of Public Works.
Adam Tagan, Planning and Zoning.
Shane Burkhart, Rural Engineering.
Joe Bachman, Wisconsin Rapids City Times.
And Terry Nolan, District, oh, I'm sorry, Lee, go ahead. In the mayor.
Lee Tao, Alderman.
Zach Verlink, Mayor.
I just want to say I'm Terry Nolan again, District 8, but.
The tan on today.
Tan. Item 2, consider a memorandum of understanding with Pearl Engineering Corporation for conceptual design services on the Triangle redevelopment.
Do you want me to handle
Yeah, this is, I think you could probably provide more background on it than tonight.
All right. Well, as you know, with the Triangle project, we've been buying up property, and we have some planning level documents that show that the property should be redeveloped, and generically it says for a mixed-use development. So we wanted to kind of take it to the next level and begin to get some more conceptual plans that are more site-specific and can kind of give a better idea of what could fit on that property. These by no means will be engineered and able to pull permits or anything like that. It's really just conceptual in nature. Since we don't really have a budgeted line item for this, we reached out to a local firm who we hoped would help us out on this on a pro bono basis. So myself and Todd Weiler from Water and Light met with Pearl Engineering last week, I believe it was, to go over our ask. Basically, we sat down and said, we don't have money for this. This is something that we see community benefit in, and we're hoping that they would take it on as just, like I said, on a pro bono basis, and or because of their interest in the downtown, since they are located downtown. That meeting went very well, better than expected, to be honest. They were very receptive to that, and they are offering, they just wanted to basically put in writing what they were offering so that there's not an opportunity for either side to really take advantage of each other, so that we're not taking advantage of what they're offering and they're providing what we are understanding. So it's fairly straightforward. It's basically conceptual design, although they are going above and beyond what I would. And were you giving copies, please?
Well, it's,
I
know I saw
just
it.
in
I
case.
just asked Joe. We didn't.
if you want.
It was in the email.
But I guess I was expecting maybe some nice, pretty pictures out of it. Something that would be very low level. They are actually gonna kind of play with some of their toys. It sounds like they have some laser imaging abilities, so they'll actually go out to the site and use laser imaging to figure out what is there, and then as they design a potential building out there, that'll actually allow them to give you sight lines, for example. So if you wanted to see what the view from a third-story apartment would look like with that imaging data, they would actually be able to project that out in the real world, so you would actually be able to see a 360 type of degree. And they are going to look at some potential massing for the site, you know, what type size building would work there, as well as looking at some parking options. So ultimately, again, it's all conceptual. It's not something that when we go out for an RFP that the expectation would be that a developer would have to meet it 100%. It's really just to give people an idea of what the potential of that location is. Since the long-term goal obviously is to acquire that entire block, they would be looking at it as the entire block, even if we end up not acquiring the entire parcel. So, like I said, it's really just a formality so that both sides are protected. City attorney scanned it over. She just said it is technically a contract for services, so we should bring it before this committee so that there's a formal approval.
No, I was just going to ask Shane a question. In the scope of work that's not included, it does talk about underground investigation. I think it's probably, we're thinking more on the environmental and some of the other work that we've already got planned, but Adam mentioned parking, and so maybe you can share what extent there will be any investigation related to maybe exploring underground parking for the site.
If it is, it will be just purely conceptual without any real engineering thought.
Perfect,
The
okay.
intent is we're gonna have one of our design technicians, kind of run with this, with a little oversight from me, just kind of as a liaison, you know, as a member of Planning and Zoning Commission here also, just to kind of tie things together and be a representative of the city here.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure that everyone's understood as to what.
Right.
what-
Even though it's coming from an engineering firm, there is zero engineering going into it, you know, beyond just, you know, general thought and stuff like that, so.
And quite honestly, that's what we want. We don't want to tie the developer's hands. We don't want to get it so pigeonholed that no one is interested. We just really, again, want to give the potential of the site.
And I guess if the question comes up as to why Pearl is offering to do this is, one, we, you know, enjoy being good community members and stuff too, and then like Adam said, we do have our new laser scanner that we are gonna use as a training opportunity for our staff to get up there and use the technology also, so.
There was mention about some views from different elevations. Is that the laser scanner technology, or is that?
What the
drone
laser
or
scanner will
something?
do is it'll capture the existing, it'll be like photorealistic of what's there now, but it all in 3D. And then when we, you know, put a mass building on, we can take and, you know, run some views from it to kind of see what, you know, it's gonna look like out over the river and stuff
Okay.
like that.
Very cool, thanks.
Seems like a no. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Furkey.
So, using Second Street as a termination point, so that's basically the property that's already acquired by the city plus the Charlie's building.
It would be, yeah, Charlie's building, property acquired by the city, but it would also be I guess that would be the east side of Second Street. So it could include the Ebert properties, Four Stools, and the county annex.
Okay.
But again, it's not the expectation. That can go either way. If we acquire the property, great, we have some idea what would fit on there. If not, we can move forward without.
Right. So we need a motion to accept this, or what?
I would think so.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the memorandum of understanding with Pearl Engineering Corporation for conceptual design services on the Triangle redevelopment.
I will second that.
Any further discussion?
Just maybe one quick comment. I appreciate Pearl's willingness
Yeah,
to work with city
absolutely.
staff and us on putting some kind of further definition to the vision that we're considering for the site, and realizing that it means a lot of things to a lot of different people, and we've all heard what could or what people think is being proposed when nothing has been proposed for the site. So I think this will be nice to really steer the discussion and dialogue going forward for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion so carried.
Everybody have a good day.
Thanks, Adam. Item 3, consider a contract with the Southwood County YMCA for Summer Success YMCA Urban Day Camp Experience. Mayor, you want to kick it off?
Sure, just some general comments, I guess, on this request. We had talked last fall that if the pool wasn't going to open this year, what would the city offer youth for programming and engagement opportunities? At that time, we talked about the fact that we were still budgeting for pool operational dollars in the 2016 budget, with the potential that those could be used for other purposes. Maybe something like this that's being proposed or considered tonight. And I would say that beyond sort of the discussion about the pool not opening following the council's committee of the whole discussion on the matter, there's been a lot of concern from residents about where can I send my kids for programmatic opportunities or options, knowing there are some out there, but there maybe wouldn't be the full extensive options like sending or making the pool available on a daily basis and that sort of thing. And so had some conversation with Brett from the Y, as well as Margie Dorhorst, the principal at the building administrator over at Mead, regarding what options might look like. And I think since that time, the proposal that we have in front of us tonight, I guess incorporates all the discussion and feedback that Brett and the members of the Mead Charter School talked about as a proposal maybe for the city to consider. So I guess, has everyone seen the proposal and looked at it? Okay. I think it was distributed in your mailboxes
Yeah.
last Friday.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, I don't know. So
I'm sorry.
if it wasn't, I guess, Tim, do you know if it was distributed in the boxes?
It should have gone out with the finance packet.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering, yeah. So it should have been in the finance packet.
It's kinda like this, I saw this too, and then I
Yeah, behind
asked
the
Joe
Pearl
where it
Engineering.
was, cause I couldn't find it again, but they were in the original pack.
I was just gonna address if there's any questions
Oh, in the email.
for this. But I guess, Brett, if you wanted to maybe speak to general components of it.
Sure.
Just knowing if they've read it or not, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I guess I will just add on to the mayor's comments about that, you know, we have 419 children in those west side neighborhoods that go to Mead Elementary Charter School. So, and 80% of them are on free and reduced lunch. So when you think about opportunities during the summer, that is the greatest opportunity for children to fall behind, academically, socially, physically. And so what are we going to do? And with that, this proposal that we're throwing out there extends beyond just the aquatic environment. But what can we do academically? What can we do socio-emotionally, as well as physically for these kids? And what we're proposing is a 3-month option for children to come on a week-by-week basis. And working directly with the school, looking at all partners being able to put, quote-unquote, skin into the game to make this affordable and accessible for all children and their families. And then the proposal looks like this, is that for the months of June and the months of August, we would use the Mead School as a before urban camp and an after camp type of childcare piece for about an hour to hour and a half in the morning and after camp. But then we would bus them down to Port Edwards, and in that component, they would definitely have swim lessons. So within that time, they would get swim lessons as part of that piece. We have what's called our Renaissance Learning Lab, so they would use accelerated math programs from Renaissance. We also have a library, so we'd add that component. We would look at our youth center, which looks at the movement component, and we'd have an outdoor environment for them, and then bus them back at the end of the day. So they'd have that chance to come in on a weekly basis. We would look to bring in 48 children and bus them down back and forth each day. In the month of July, we would actually bus those children out to Camp Alexander on Lake Nepco. And the option with Lake Nepco is that they have the canoeing, kayaking, there's still the aquatic elements there. We have our zip line and low ropes course for team building, as well as the outdoor enrichment. So when we think about the experience that a lot of these children, this would be something new and exciting for them that we believe. And what we're looking at is the school, because we want to make sure they're successful, is able to provide a warm breakfast for them. We watch them, we get them on the bus, we get them to our site. They'd also be willing to assist in providing sack lunches for these kids. So that's through their work with the government and those food programs, which again makes it affordable and accessible for these children. We look at what is our stripped down costs, because if we really want to serve these kids, and right now it's about $20 per day per child. And so all we're proposing is to charge you for the exact number of children that we actually serve. So if it's 30 children, 48 children, or if we could handle up to 100 children, that's how we would work those costs within that proposal. So those are the overall components related to that. We have a start date of June 6th. However, working with the school, it might be the next week after that. So we're looking at a 10-week type of program that takes them right up to the summer. And that's what we're excited about with this, because the alternative for the children is really being watched by an older sibling or in front of a TV screen. And so this gets them away from that. This gives them that experience that they normally wouldn't have. We would charge families. We would charge them a rate of $4 per day. So really $20 per week for a family should be very affordable for them. And that kind of was worked out with working with the principal, with Margie, on what families can afford related to the programming. So we feel that it's the right thing to do because, one, we're talking about kids that need us the most. Two, we're really talking about access to opportunities that normally wouldn't be there. And third, we're actually looking at, I think, a unique partnership between the city, the Y, and the school at helping to address needs specifically for this population. So that, in a nutshell, is the proposal. And if passed, we are ready to start working on the promotion and actually enrolling children and getting that ready for the city, or for those children. So then I guess I would entertain questions now that you've heard a little bit more around that. So, yeah.
What ages are the kids?
For 6 through 12 years old.
Okay. And I may have missed as you presented it, is this for all of those in Rapids or the charter schools?
We looked at that specific, those specific neighborhoods. As we thought about the kids that are going to be impacted the most potentially by the Mead pool, it's going to be those children in those neighborhoods. What we know is there's about 100 to 120 to 140 children in after-school programming at Mead between the Boys and Girls Club and the Y. When the summer came, the majority of those children funneled out to the outdoor pool. And so it was very much serving the kids in those neighborhoods. So when we think about who our primary market is, it was the children in the west side neighborhoods. I mean, if we think we need to extend beyond that, we'd be happy to look at that piece to keep it there. But these are probably the kids that are going to need it the most. Thank you.
Anything else need want a hard copy?
Just thinking.
That's what I thought. But it wasn't.
Yeah. Yep. Sure. If we look at, if we were to look at what the pretty much all-in cost, so to speak, would be, is that if we were to serve 48 children per week for 11 weeks, 5 days a week, that'd be about $58,000. And when you look at what the Mead Charter School is looking to contribute between the meals, and they have some access to AmeriCorps staff, their contribution is roughly about $10,000 towards that program. We're looking to wipe any administrative fees related to this and also contribute half the busing costs to do that. So our all-in cost is roughly about that same, about $10,000.
Brett addressed ceiling, or the capacity, I guess, of the program. Brett, when you're talking about 48 kids, what are you proposing with that number 48? Is that what you're proposing when you use the number 48? Tell me where that number comes from.
That is, when we look at 48, we know at Camp Alexander, we're running a licensed program, so we're going to take on those costs to license those spaces. And so we will run it with certain ratios and certain requirements that are governed by the state when we come to licensing requirements. So we want to make sure it's a safe program. And so when we look at that, 48 is a good number for when we look at Camp Alexander based upon the existing kids that are already going to be enrolled in that program. When we look at the on-site in Port Edwards with this, and that we have the ability to go up to 100 kids if we need to. 48 is really good because when we look at busing, that's the number of kids we can get on a bus along with the counselors. And if we decide that we're getting waiting lists, we're happy to take that on and look at how we get those kids, more of those kids out there. This was a pretty good starting point, and this was also when talking with Margie based upon previous experience on summer enrollment and programming. This is a good average number to start with. And like I said, if it happens to be 36, 48, or if we decide that there's a big, huge demand for it and it's 68 or 100, we will work within that to accommodate that.
As a follow-up, I guess, to that, had Tim do a kind of an upper bounds costing of what this program would look like if it was maxed out at the Brett's proposed numbers of 100, Tim's 60 for the Camp Alexander, and then back again in August for the 100. The upper bounds of that capacity of what is kind of presented to the city for consideration would be about $110,000. So why I asked the 48 numbers, I'm wondering where are we at within that spectrum of 60 kids for the Camp Alexander or 100 for the Urban Day Camp? And being sensitive to Tom's question about you know, if we're offering this maybe as a pilot or a trial for a neighborhood, where do we set maybe an upper limit of participation? And if we set a participation limit for that area, do we open up the last capacity for paid use? And, you know, so I just, a couple of thoughts, I guess. I don't necessarily suggest anything particularly. Maybe a question for Brett would be, was there any discussion or consideration by Mead to do, or by the Y, to do a sliding scale based on financial ability to pay or participate in the program?
Yeah, we keep that out in front of us, that, you know, just like camp right now, the fees are the fees, and that if they can't, then we look at our membership or our scholarship program to say, okay, how can we work with the family? I mean, if they're very destitute, then, you know, $20, we can find that somewhere, we can work with a donor to help cover that piece. But, so we will work with them on a case-by-case basis for that. And one thing I forgot to ask, or forgot to mention, in the month of July, when they're at Camp Alexander, we have field trips that are already planned. Things like what are themes of, like Water Week, where we take them down to the Dells, and we use the indoor. So that's already built in as part of our overall cost of that. So it's, we feel pretty excited by the experience that these kids would be experienced to, and I know that Margie has done some anecdotal type of work with some of the families, and there's seems to be some general excitement if this was to come about.
What was the cost again for 48, Mayor? Or what are we going
Well,
by?
if we go the upper limit, Tim had figured 110,000, which was 100, that was maximum at each of the months, so
100 kids?
100 in June, 60 in July, and 100 in August. And I think, Brett, you had offered them to sign up by the week, right? So these,
Correct.
These would be kids by the week that could sign up.
So 110?
No, 240, right?
To 60, if you talk unique kids.
110 grand.
Each month, 110 grand, sorry, yeah. In our budget for the pool, we had 70.
74, but then less the 15 for the circuit.
Consulting.
About 60,000.
60,000.
Go ahead, Joe.
You know, one other issue that we do have to consider as far as financial, and we don't have hard estimates at this point, I don't believe, but that is sealing up and taking care of the old meat pool, getting that site restored and ready for whatever its next use is gonna be. You know, I think initially we talked about using the pool budget for that as well, so we'll have to decide, you know, what the priorities are and what our plans might be for that facility if we don't have funding to.
How much would that be to take out? Do you have any idea, Joe?
Off the top of my head, I'm thinking it's gonna be around 40 to 60, somewhere in there. Kind of depends on, I don't believe there's any asbestos or any other related issues there. But I would say somewhere in there.
The bigger question is if we're gonna greenfield it, right?
Right.
If we greenfield it, or do
Yeah,
we do something
Right.
Yep.
less than that?
Right, and if we can, you know, depending on how effectively our construction projects go, things like that, you know, utilizing our own staff, you know, we're really looking at our pocket costs that would consist of just the disposal costs and you know, trying to rearrange and realign some of our regular priorities if we can fit it in. We've kind of talked about that in various ways with different projects, because we do have a little bit of a light schedule depending on the raw water main project.
I guess my thoughts are, at least specifically on that, is that we don't do anything until we decide what we're gonna do. I mean, we might end up having another outdoor pool in that same exact footprint, so I guess I wouldn't be in a hurry to do anything there.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't hurt anything sitting there. First off, getting back to this, I guess I'm at a loss to see why the city is doing this. I mean, are we doing this just because we don't have a pool, we're we're trying to give some children activities. To me, this looks like it should be more part of the school system's focus rather than city Wisconsin Rapids. And I understand the value and when you talk about the minorities and their after-school activities and stuff like that. But I see a big part of this burden is going on the city taxpayer rather than as a whole, rather than just the Mead School area residents. So I guess I don't understand all of that real well, and I apologize for not reading through this prior to getting here, but.
I guess maybe I would offer some comments, and anybody else who obviously chime in, but I guess I would say, just like the city's obligation is to offer municipal aquatics, I guess I don't view this as necessarily a permanent thing, that this is a one-year pilot, that in the absence of any summer activity, we offer rec programming and things. But even to the extent that the parents or the family or the supervision, there's still some cost being borne by the participants. So it isn't fully subsidized by city taxpayers. In fact, to Brett's point about the school district's contribution as well as the WISE contribution, Mead Elementary's in for 15 or 11,000 plus the staff that they're contributing to the program.
Who's that?
Mead Elementary, yep, with 2 staff. It should be on the last page of the thing.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, letter J. And maybe Brett, you want to talk about sort of the cost, but yeah, I think Todd, that's, I guess, my position. The concern that I heard from parents was the city doesn't have an option, a viable option for the same amount of time, let's say, that kids would take advantage of the usage of the pool, and so therefore, this is sort of in lieu of that, and because we've got a budget line item available for what we would have used to operate the pool, should the issues not arose, that this could be a viable consideration by the city. So I guess that's one position, my 2 cents to answer your question.
I would add on 2 others. One is that the school has tried something last summer and just was unfortunately unsuccessful with that endeavor. And that's because programming is not necessarily their area of expertise when it comes to those types of activities. So partnering with them allows us to do that, and they bring some resources that we normally wouldn't be able to do. And the big piece of this is look at what the costs may be incurred by not doing anything at all with these children, and what the challenges are for, whether it's crime or continue to fall further back within the school, and what that ripple effect is going to be. So we have a opportunity here to break the cycle with that. So by everyone contributing or helping to support that, we're able to help meet that need, not just for aquatics, but beyond that. That would be what I would add on.
And I don't know the budget breakdown for the pool, but a fraction of it went to youth programming, not all that different than this, with swim lessons and other things that we're no longer providing because of the closure of the pool.
Well, in all honesty, when we were budgeting, we had numerous meetings on it, and I know Tom brought it up, and we might have all talked about it one time, right? We decided to keep that money in there for a program such as this. Now, I'm a little, and I did read this, and I understand the west side, but what are the kids on the east side gonna say?
Yeah, all out fairness, I think, because we're spending tax dollars here, it should be open to the city as a whole, not just to those 2 districts out there. I'm in that district, but with all out fairness, we're gonna use their taxpayer money. I think we should open it up to them too.
Now, you can still do it, you just don't have the same kids going every week.
Well, Brett, I think we talked a little bit about that, because I posed the same question. How can we accommodate any city resident then? And maybe
It makes picking a lot more difficult, I guess, but.
Yeah, we would look at the enrollments. We have the ability to be mobile and set up right in the schools and take on that enrollment piece. And If we're seeing that that there's a lot of excitement around that, we're then able to say, okay, how do we ensure that each child has at least one week or one opportunity to that programming, so we can cap and monitor that fairly easy.
Just curious, Brad, because I think my son actually signed up, my granddaughter, for a Y. What is the Y, for a week session for like a
175 a
6-year-old?
week
Yeah.
for day camp, and then it's about $400 when
For-
you're looking at resident camp.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, this is just, it's a deal.
Yeah.
But we gotta leave it, in my mind, open. But- Tom?
Just a couple more, I guess. Has the school district, or do they have to be contacted, such as the board, for the meet school involvement? I mean, it's a question that I probably should have asked at the start.
Margie has seen this exact proposal. My understanding, she has the authority to sign off on that because we're working directly with that, and she's already given its blessing for the partnership. So.
And the other is the 70-some thousand that was in there for what has been mentioned already for the study of a new pool or towards a new pool or something, so I get,
No, we just
that
had
decision will have
15
to
already,
be,
right?
that decision will have to be made, and
That's what we're here for.
is it just the Rapids kids? Okay. I was wondering, going to the Y in Port, I wanted to make sure.
Yep. Yep. It's just for those children.
But Tom did raise an important consideration. I personally struggle with this. Maybe it's rooted in what Todd raised as maybe a question is, and it's maybe a role that I see playing at the Boys and Girls Club as a member of the board of directors is, what's the Wisconsin Rapids School District's view of its obligation before and after school and in the summertime? And I see very different of opinions between Rapids, Port, and Nakusa school districts, and I'll just be very upfront about that. The Nakusa school district supports the Boys and Girls Club in a big way for their youth in the summer and before and after school. I know the Rapids school district does offer some of those things, but I wonder the same question. If the city finds its limit with its budgetary, or even somewhere beneath that, and says to the school district, we want to make this available to city residents or students within the district, how does the school district participate in this? And I know that's out of Brett's scope coming into this today, but I just add those thoughts to the conversation because I think they have some resources that they don't necessarily view as appropriate to be used for some of these things, when maybe as a taxpayer individually, I'd say that they should be contributed for something like this.
I like the idea. I mean, I guess, but I also do believe it should be opened up to more kids if we could, but I mean, there is some type of budget restraint, I'm sure, you can't have 400 kids coming, but, I mean.
Well, let's see, pick a week.
But, yeah, you pick a week and do it, but I mean, I think anything we can do for the kids for the summer would be great. So.
Well, and the pool numbers is kind of a good indicator, and that's Brett's point earlier about Margie looking at what her attendance of her population is, her student population. I think if the only concern, I guess, would be if we open up to the city, which, believe me, I'm all for, is obviously what's the criteria? If it's a 1 week where they get to sign up, first right of refusal, but if there's slots open, then it kind of gets opened up for participants a second time. But the one drop point, does Mead have the capacity to take kids before and after school like it's being proposed in here? Let's say, I guess the maximum, I guess you've already determined what the maximum of the program is, so as long as we're operating within some bounds, we should be able to accommodate the kids from anywhere, it doesn't matter geographic boundary then.
I just look at, I don't know how many you have, and with all the person help, I'm all for it. I mean, we've talked about this, we put it in the budget, and we can say we put that budget to do a pool study, but we took 15 out to do that, so. whatever's left, and then, you know, and let's be realistic, if more kids sign up and we gotta do something, we've moved funds around for a lot worse things than kids, I'll tell you that, so, my personal opinion. And I know we got a budget, but we gotta do something for them, we're in this fix and we gotta, maybe you won't have that many kids extra sign up, I don't know.
You know, we would welcome that problem, you know, if we have that many kids that are looking to take advantage of it, you know. It would be a great story, one, in terms of communicating back to our residents about how we're addressing needs of children collectively, not independently. And we would be pretty much the biggest cheerleader to help support that message, because that's exactly what we're doing. But, you know, yeah, we can take upwards of 100 kids we know on site related to this, but when we get out to Cap Alexander, it gets a little bit hairier.
You probably don't want me to.
But, you know, the good thing is that, you know, we have potentially staff in the wings, and, you know, where these staff are coming from are, you know, residents of Wisconsin Rapids, which is great, you know.
I don't imagine anybody would step forward and just donate some money for this, huh?
We actually, Brett, maybe you want to speak to the grant opportunity. It wasn't the city as a grant requester, but it was, we partnered on one together.
Yeah, there is a grant opportunity that comes up to through the cities, right, with partnerships with nonprofits.
With the U.S. Conference of Mayors, yeah.
On initiatives such as this. And so we have applied for that grant. I'm not quite sure when the response to letting us know when that's going to look like, but we're remaining optimistic around that piece of it. But we did submit that as a collaborative piece between, again, the city, the school, and the Y.
And I think to that point, if we cap out at our budget number, or whatever the committee and the council decide to do, going to a few benefactors in the community to say we have this need of a high needs population of youth that have traditionally been supportive of youth needs, I think would be a pretty good story, again, from a request standpoint.
Has the city ever made an application using its community progress initiative?
I'm not sure if we have a fund. I didn't know the city had a fund.
I believe the city has a fund. I believe all the municipalities have a, back in early 2000, the Community Progress Initiative. It was an initiative through the foundation and the heart. And, you know, grants can be applied for programs that benefit the city, the community. When I worked in Port, we had a number of small projects that we used some of those funds as leverage. But there's a grant committee. You can check in with the foundation to find out for the city what that committee looks like, who's on it, I'm sure their application is the same as for the other communities. You know, there might be $15,000, $20,000 of available funding through that program, because it is this would be a citywide initiative, and it might fall within the guidelines of that program. You remind me of one other thing too, when we think about the Village of Port Edwards. You know, last summer was the first year where the Village of Port Edwards outdoor pool was closed, and so the same question was there: what do we do with these kids? And it was a partnership that we did with the Village of Port Edwards and local businesses to provide 3-month memberships for youth in that community and provide swim lessons. And you know, we were a little late at hitting the schools. We're in a May time frame, but we had 56 memberships that were co-sponsored essentially between these 3 entities. And it was the village council had viewed that as such a positive thing that they're wanting to re-up that again this upcoming year. So we're presenting that for them, so we can look at how we target more kids.
That's going to be my next, I think you're hearing that we're definitely interested in doing something, and if it works out, you're going to have the request again. You know, these kids are going to want to do it. Whether we get an aquatic center or whatever, they're still going to want to do some of that stuff. So it may be something that goes on too.
Yep. I was just going to mention that.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, it looks interesting. It's first I seen it tonight. I was wondering for sure what was coming up with the agenda item. And, you know, if it works, the continuation I guess the tax dollars, city tax dollars could be an issue with some of, well, probably with all of us, but, maybe, probably, but some more apt to go with it, because I do think it looks like a good program for the kids. And if kids go, I could see this being continued, but also, we gotta keep in mind the aquatic center and what we're gonna do there. If we're gonna use that money, we're gonna have to find money from somewhere or else the next budget to put something in. So,
I mean, if we don't do
I
something.
mean, that takes the
Yeah.
budget for this year.
If we don't do something like this, we're gonna have to, I don't know what it is, but a movie every week, or I don't know, you're gonna have to do something for the kids, so. I know there's other programs out there, we all went to when we were kids, but there ain't as many as there used to be, so.
Just thinking out loud, with the original sort of inception of this idea was to serve the kids that needed this programming the most, those that qualify for free and reduced lunch and have sort of economic statuses that necessitate more structured programming so you can break the cycle and things. So the question I'd ask is, if the city's in $20 per day for each of the respective programs per kid, how do we maybe address overcapacity and ability to pay for those parents or those households that have the ability to pay more than the $20 per week? So I'm not offering a solution other than maybe revisiting the sliding scale a little bit and saying, if we're going to open this up, to put the entire subsidy or the percentage of the subsidy on the city taxpayers, maybe we look at backing that off a little bit. I mean, it'd be great to have full capacity with all the kids, but we're going to be very inclusive then, and your spots are being competed against maybe of those that are our highest priority youth. Just a couple thoughts.
And that's why if it works out, that to continue it then somehow, I guess, advance warning, months ago, which would be next year,
Right.
Well, it's,
for next year's budget if we're be involved.
I mean, we do city T-ball, what do we charge for that?
Our programs, you can ask Tim, I mean, generally our rec programs, they don't pay for themselves. I mean, the small amounts.
Right,
of-
so
I mean, I
you're
guess I shouldn't say they
budgeting-
don't pay for
so you're-
themselves, it depends.
They pay for the out-of-pocket, like you get an instructor, and usually the fees are structured to cover the instructor plus supplies, but it doesn't cover any administrative or anything like that, so they're kind of just.
One, you'd be surprised, another discussion, but the amount of non-residents that are in our
Oh, sure.
programs. And the cost differential there is not that great, so I think, narrowing this,
I just asked, 'cause I used to run Little League, and I know we charge $25 to this day, I think they do.
our fees haven't
It's the
been
same thing,
adjusted
you're
for
subsidizing it
years.
one way or another,
Yeah.
whether you're taking it out of this budget. I mean, I'm sure the we all got skin in the game, but the Y's subsidize, when it's $400 a week day camp's 170 some, yeah, so. So this is if you're paying 20 a day, it's 100. I'm for it, I just don't wanna tee the taxpayers off, I guess. It's our youth. What are we here for if we're not gonna, we want youth to stay in this community, and then we're gonna worry about if somebody complains a little bit about doing these programs.
Not
That's
only
my
want youth to
opinion.
stay, we want youth to be achievers,
Yeah,
right? I
right.
mean, we don't want them in the PD's hair all summer long or whatever, right? So I think this is our opportunity to really make a good impression on city residents and city youth exclusively, to encourage a greater enrichment throughout the summer months, so.
I don't wanna put words in everybody's mouth, but what I'm hearing is, this is a pretty short statement here, but, a motion maybe to go into this, but we go for signups and see how many kids we do get, and then we look at.
To
okay,
open enrollment, you're saying to?
Well,
open
I don't know
up
if we're gonna get
enrollment
over
to-
100, I don't know. I don't know that.
If you're looking at us, we would, our part of our promotion plan would be is actually some targeted parent nights right away in the school, and setting up shop to do the enrollment right there. You know, we have a sense on what this could be like, but, you know, this is new. This is a new initiative. But, you know, we're prepared at this point, especially when it got to the July months where we were gonna have to, okay, 48 were capped. And then we may adjust either way depending on what our regular enrollment is at camp. So we'd be looking at doing the same thing with the urban piece, so.
And on the other hand, it is a pilot program, maybe you do cap it. I'm just saying, we should, to what everybody said, we shouldn't cap it just to the Mead School, and I understand, I mean,
We have built in as part of the collaborative effort, to Mr. Aone's point is at the end of the summer is how the three entities sit down and actually review and analyze the success of the program to determine whether this is a go, no-go, continue on, or what changes may need to be made related to that. So, you know, that's an important evaluation piece that we can report back on. And we also are thinking about what evaluation or a measurement piece that we can have as an outcome-based related to these kids. So we're talking about, you know, using examples of academic achievement, what does that look like from the beginning of the week to the end of the week, et cetera. And we've done that similarly with summer school programming, working with NACUSA, with accelerated math in terms of math objectives. So we can look at similar outcome-based measures, which is an important piece in terms of investment.
How do you feel, Brett, about changing the expense to the participants in the sense of other hard and fast lines? If they don't qualify for free and reduced lunch as a measure, they're paying twice as, I mean, I guess, how would you approach that? I mean, if the city's saying we've got $110,000 total maximum potential cost on the proposal, we've got up to 60 available sort of to spend for summer, what we had spent in pool programming. So we reduced our expenses down, but raised some of the participant cost to be able to keep the amount of kids, at least the number, close to that.
I don't know if I have a good answer to that right now. I'm open to anything about how we explore to make something definitely work what we think makes sense. Part of me feels is that, you know, if we're making a delineation, okay, if a child qualifies for free and reduced lunch versus doesn't qualify for free and reduced lunch, does that make them any less at risk in terms of summer months? So to me, it's like, you know, why necessarily do that? Again, all of these kids, whether they qualify or not from these neighborhoods, are having lack of access to opportunities in the summer. And that's the way we kind of viewed it originally.
well, and it is a pilot program, and use a charter school like Mead, I don't, you know, I guess I'm kind of torn now, because
So, staying with Mead, the Mead School students, I'm assuming you're expecting them to walk to school, or walk to the program, rather than if we have opening it up citywide, the parents would have to drop them off, pick them off, bus them or something like that, which is going to incur an awful lot more money and stuff like that. I'll tell you, my overall view of this is, I don't really think this is where the city needs to be, but without a pool this year and some monies that were in the budget for the operation of the pool, you know, I guess I would not be opposed to it, but I don't like this going on year after year, what you were talking about doing. If a new pool comes in, a new pool is opened up next year, year after next, I really think that this has to be looked at year by year, not an ongoing trap. So that's my good idea.
And really, the proposal is just for this year.
Correct.
So, right. Because you'll do the go, no-go after that anyhow. You might not go again, so.
Well, and it's all budget dependent, right? So if we put in a pool, and we don't have the cash to do something like this. It doesn't exist, I guess is sort of my quick test, and probably the same thing the finance director would say. It's all budget.
I'm just looking at it from, everything, that's what the budget process is, looking at your priorities and whether you can afford to do new initiatives. I mean, my only caution is that, if you're gonna do the pilot program, that you say this is because in lieu of, not having aquatics, because, you know how it is, you offer a service, then the expectation is that,
Exactly.
and then you get actually more grief when you try to not, when you don't continue it, so. But I mean, it's something that I have to see if we go down this, if you kind of view it as like a one-time for aquatic, but it can be evaluated and see what the impact on youth was, and, if the city chooses to continue it, put it into the budget process and see where it shakes out in the priorities and what we can afford and not afford.
Yep.
There is a level of risk with us too on that, which you can appreciate too, because, if we run this and it's successful and all of a sudden it doesn't take a priority in terms of funding for next year, we're the ones, we have our names attached to that too, so residents are gonna be looking for this, so how do we address sustainability if this is a successful thing, so. Yeah.
Sure. But we're the ones that get the phone calls. But, and again, if you do some type of measurements and it's concluded a success, then I guess I would revisit it with the school system. Because, again, I think this is more school-related rather than city taxpayer related. The services that the city should be providing.
Yeah, I think that's something we could look at. If you looked at the
Yeah.
impact and the outcomes of it, maybe you could bring in more partners, because now you're kind of armed with the information, the data that supports that it was actually a successful program. And pull in some additional partners to help, fund the obligation.
Is there time to apply for what Joe mentioned, that,
I just sent a inquiry out to see what the status is of the
if there's
of
something
the
there
city
that...
program, and if there's something there in form, so we'll see, that's what I was just.
We have that back
taking a
by
glance.
6?
You never know.
Could do a GoFundMe account too. And
Yeah, there you go.
where's those out there? I mean,
So is it today's like 7, 8 kids?
We would go unique users, so, if this child is coming to enroll, we get them in for 1 week for sure, and they allow them to choose which number of week they would want, 1 out of the 11. And then, we make sure that we allow everyone to get first, and then we could open up for additional second, third, or fourth weeks beyond that. So that way,
Like,
maybe
so-
guaranteed.
Yeah, so like, if we said like, okay, I'm gonna budget on this, and then
Yep.
you could work with that. and then-
Exactly.
But then could you develop like a secondary, like a
Yes.
waiting list, and then maybe if the demand's strong, it's something that,
Yep, we come back
School
and
district
report
or
on.
somebody
Yep.
steps up, yeah.
set our budget at whatever. And
I think that's how we have to.
Yeah, set our budget at this, and
evaluate what the
then
participation
we
is.
can go up to this
Might
many
be-
kids and this much budget. And if we have too many kids or whatever, see if somebody else will.
Right. Get some different partners or grant opportunities or something like that.
Go fund
If you're.
So, what you're looking for is a motion just to consider the contract, all the details will be in the contract, right?
Well, it's to consider this contract, I think that's put in front of you with some limitations, unless you put it back on us to negotiate something within some parameters, I guess would be. the
Well, you're
way to do this.
110,000 rolling around for the city, but I don't think that's the limitation.
We're in the budget for it, right? So that was the starting point, is to
I'd
maybe
say
start with what we've got available, or.
we could say
Or
within
fraction of that,
our
even. It could
budget
be
or
smaller
something,
than
or
that.
something. Or do you need an amount?
Well, I mean, I guess what we could do is, because we're gonna actually have another meeting next week.
Right.
We've had most of our discussion tonight, is that maybe we could look at, some budget parameters, and then work with Brett to kind of come down as like, actually, okay, what does this translate into number of participants? And then we can revise the contract to kind of bring it back. That'll
So-
have that specific participation level that the city would support. Would that work? Or,
Yeah, absolutely.
and then if that's,
Can I just verify where the 110,000 comes from again?
Full capacity,
it's
right?
100 children and a.
Oh, 100.
Yeah, I did, I just said total
Got it.
maximum potential,
Got it.
but it all depended on what the
Exactly.
participation is,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, yeah, got it.
So you're really looking for a motion to finalize and bring back next week?
We could just hold it over and
Yeah, let's just, I mean, I
You just
I
get
think
direction.
we're all for what we're hearing in some aspect or another. I think just let's finalize it and bring it back on the 6th.
Well, nothing else, some opportunity to get more feedback, right?
Yep.
To
Yeah.
actually-
Well, we'll get, I'm sure we'll get it. Well,
Those that you're not getting, those that are concerned about,
from the 10 people, that well, the paper, it's gonna be in the paper, so, you know.
should be.
But yeah, that sounds good. I mean, we got a meeting next week, so it's good timing. All right, we'll hold it over.
okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brett.
I appreciate it, yeah. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, item 4, in open session, the committee will vote to go into closed session under section 19.85, para 1, para E of the Wisconsin statutes, which reads, deliberating or whoop,
I don't know if we need a motion to say to hold this item over.
Okay.
Place on the-
So otherwise it kind
That way
of
it's kinda
fails.
clear.
you do need a motion?
Well, it would fail, I
Well-
guess, without any action.
Yeah, I'd say take a, you should probably make a motion to hold it over until the October 6th. Or-
I'll make a-
October.
I'll make a,
April 6th?
Yes, yeah.
I'll make a motion that we hold over the consideration of contract with the Southwood County YMCA for Summer Success YMCA Urban Camp Experience until our next Wednesday meeting, April 6th.
Yes.
And when thereon, we will get more information and get a vote.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, item 4. In open session, the committee will vote to go into closed section under section 19.85, para 1, para E of the Wisconsin statutes, which reads, deliberate, or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. A, continuing in closed session, the committee will discuss negotiations regarding the purchase of properties in the downtown area. B, the committee may take action regarding negotiations parameters in closed session and may adjourn in closed session. C, the committee may return to open session and have continued discussion regarding the purchase of properties and may take action on the purchase of specific properties. I would motion that we go into closed session.
Welcome to the State of Wisconsin Government Accountability Board's Voting in Wisconsin and the Voter Photo Identification Law presentation. Let's get started by outlining who is eligible to vote in Wisconsin. To vote in Wisconsin, you must be at least 18 years of age by the time of the next election. You must also be a U.S. citizen, and you must reside at your current address for at least